All right, welcome in everyone. GC Live Monday edition, not a Monday addiction, Monday edition of the show. Chris Clark here. Got our guy Kevin Miller standing in for Wes Mitchell today. He's still around. He's just not on the show today. Kev joining me. Appreciate you taking your time out today, Kev, with everything else you got going on. Guys, we're gonna have a group therapy session. That's what I titled the stream here. That's what we're gonna do. We're all here for each other. We'll answer questions. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down. We'll talk about what's next the rest of the season. And, of course, going into a pivotal offseason and much more. We are, as always, presented by our good friend Clint Hammond, CMG Home Loans. That's ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797 in MLS number. Of course, is 71597. If you are even thinking about being in the market for a home, you got mortgage questions, hit up our guy Clint. I'm sure he has thoughts on the game in this season as well. He'll be glad to talk to you about those, I'm sure. I have not talked to Wes in detail about whether or not he's talked to Clint about the game. I know last game, Clint had reached out with some thoughts to Wes. I'm sure he has some for you as well, but definitely keep him in mind always if you have any questions or have any interest in a new home or mortgage. That's ClintHammond.com. I'll also tell you right off the top about our friends at Ferry Chevrolet, Fairey, FerryChevrolet.com, 803-937-4531. Check out their inventory of new and used vehicles on FerryChevrolet.com. In business since 1926, led by fourth-generation dealer Joseph Ferry. Still rocking and rolling about 100 years later. Lets you know that they're doing business the right way, honesty, integrity, and a handshake. So if you're in the market for a new or used vehicle, again, keep Ferry Chevrolet in mind. Make them your first call. Give them the opportunity to earn your business. That's FerryChevrolet.com. All right, Kev, let's dive into it here. First of all, if y'all have thoughts, comments, questions, drop them in the chat. I don't know that we'll be able to get to everything in the next 45 to an hour, however long we end up going here. But we got a lot of ground to cover. Man, Kev, where do we start?
Plenty of places to choose.
There's plenty of places to choose. Let me give you the floor for a little bit. I mean, what's just your immediate reaction to this thing? We've seen, like, we all know the stats, right? They're putting them out during the game, putting them out after the game. Cole Kubelik's tweeting out stats. We know about the 0-286, which is now 1-286. We know about all that. What's just kind of your big picture takeaway in terms of what people are probably feeling right now? And then do you have maybe a takeaway of just actually what happened in this thing? And we'll start unpacking it from there.
Yeah, I think to kind of, address the feelings part first is I think it's perfectly fine to be outrageously frustrated. I think everyone in the building is outrageously frustrated. I think everyone who is a fan is outrageously frustrated. Everyone who is associated with the team in any kind of way is frustrated because, to be very frank, you're winning 30-3. There's no reason to not finish that game on top. And Shane Beamer said as much after the game, said as much on Sunday during his teleconference as well. So frustration, I think that's fair. I think it's fair to be frustrated with what happened. I think it's fair to be frustrated with maybe your own thoughts about how we got here, how we got to this point. And I know we'll talk some more about that in a little bit, but in terms of on the field, there's a lot. Right? In the first half, South Carolina honestly didn't play its best football and was still winning 30-3. There were several opportunities that the Gamecocks kind of left on the field, a couple of additional turnovers they could have grabbed, specifically some interceptions in which multiple players were fighting for the same football. And, when that happens, a lot of times no one ends up with it.
Yeah.
And in the second half, that pretty good level of play and Texas A&M's bad play reversed, right? Texas A&M started to execute pretty well. South Carolina stopped, and it was on both sides of the ball. South Carolina over 300 yards of offense in the first half, less than 100 in the second half.
Mhm.
Texas A&M really struggled in the first half. Even when they would move the ball, they would then, drop a pass. I mean, Casey Concepcion, who might be an All-American this year, drops a touchdown pass, easy touchdown pass, and had another drop in the game. Marcel Reed had 3 turnovers. You see these things happen in the first half. They didn't happen in the second half. And I think that's kind of as simply as you can put it is South Carolina executed pretty well in the first half, didn't in the second half. Texas A&M didn't execute well in the first half, did in the second half. And when that happens and it ends up being a little bit sort of a wash when you look at it like that, the team that it has a little bit more talent and the team that is used to winning is the one that's probably going to come out on top.
Yeah, Rodney Rogers on Facebook, heartbreak, just gutted. I mean, that's how a lot of folks feel, among other emotions, I think. I mean, yeah, I'm almost having trouble. Not almost. I am having trouble even organizing my thoughts because I feel like I'm very quickly going to get into rambling territory here, Kev. But let me try to kind of put these things into compartments, right? Look, I picked Texas A&M to win this game. I think by 11. I think I had 31-20. And I think most people picked Texas A&M to win this football game, whether it's our staff at Gamecock Central, regional, national pundits. Most Gamecock fans are saying, all right, with how the season's gone, you're playing a team in A&M that while they haven't been tested to the extent of some other teams, including South Carolina, while they haven't been tested from a schedule standpoint to that extent, they've passed every test. They've had a couple close games up until Saturday. Arkansas 3-point win, a really good Notre Dame team, I think. They win that one by 1. They win handily against some other programs. They passed all their tests. It's on the road. It's a tough place to play. They're number 3. The expectation outside of that building is South Carolina's going to lose this game. And if we get to today on Monday and we're sitting here breaking down the game, it just has a different feel because, you think, all right, we're going to be breaking down this game and we're going to be breaking down another loss, which is not fun because we've been doing it most of the season. We've been doing it since, South Carolina's last one was against Kentucky at home in September. It seems like forever ago, to be honest with you. And that was kind of the expectation, and that wouldn't have been fun. I don't think fans want moral victory. I don't think they want just compete because people love to say that. And then if you have a chance to win the game, you want to go win the game, just like the Bama game, right? Carolina's been in a lot of games this year that came down to the fourth quarter. And so I think the hope coming into this game was, can you get it to the fourth quarter? Can you finally go finish? And so whether or not you picked that, like, hey, it's going to be a close game, but they're going to lose, A&M will pull away, whether you picked a 3 or 4 touchdown loss, the rambling point I'm trying to get at here is like fans wouldn't have been happy sitting here, Saturday night, Sunday, today, here on Monday, if this team had lost to A&M. Nobody's coming in happy about it. But I very much think that what actually happened is way worse. Way worse because most people didn't expect to have a great opportunity to win this game. You certainly would have never picked South Carolina to be winning this by 27 points at halftime, much less any time in the game, but at halftime, the fact that you did that and went from, I wrote this morning, ecstasy to emptiness, after that game. It's just so much worse, right? Like, it sounds weird to say you lost a game by 1 point, and it feels exponentially worse than if you lost by 4 touchdowns. Like, if A&M had won this game by what South Carolina was leading at halftime, if A&M wins 30-3, a lot of anger online. Nobody's happy. In some ways, a lot of the same conversation, but the fact that South Carolina lost this game by 1 single point, but the way in which they lost it, it makes it seem so much worse, right? There's a psychological aspect to this. It's just, it's tough to get past.
Yeah. And there's never going to be a time when something like this should be okay either. There have been conversations amongst the fan base in I guess the 2 days ish since the end of that game. There are people who are absolutely convinced that people are overreacting, saying, "Hey, you lost by one," and then there are people who, and I lean this way, that are like, it doesn't matter if you're playing against the Super Bowl championship winning, who's the best team that we can think. I mean, maybe you can go back to the 72 Dolphins or somebody like that. It doesn't matter if you're playing them. Like, you can't be okay with blowing a 28-point lead or a 27-point lead with 28 straight points. Like, there can never be that as an acceptable outcome. And there are a lot of reasons why it happened. And you can't really, I mean, Beamer even on Sunday in his teleconference was asked, like, "Hey, can you tell us, like, just one of what do you think was the biggest missed opportunity or something?" He said no, not because he couldn't think of one, but because he said there's too many. He's like, we missed opportunities on offense, we missed them on defense, we missed them on special teams. Actually, I think in typical Beamer fashion, he started on special teams. He said we missed on special teams, we missed on offense, missed on defense. And I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. You can't try to act like it's, a good thing. You just can't do that. And it would, to your point, it would look very different if this game is close most of the way, or even if South Carolina was behind and came back and just fell a little short, But at the end of the day, I go back to thinking about something that Steve Spurrier said, what would now be almost 20 years ago, when South Carolina played Auburn, to number 2 Auburn. So very, very similar here. Texas A&M number 3 played number 2 Auburn and had a chance to win late, didn't. And some people, it wasn't a large group of people, honestly, but some people in the fan base, specifically at Williams-Brice Stadium that day, like, were standing behind clapping for the team when they walked off. And Spurrier was not happy. Right. He said, "We don't clap for losers." That's what he said. And he didn't mean, like, he wasn't saying that he was calling his team losers. He's saying, we lost today. We don't celebrate that, even though it's close.
Yeah.
And when you compound that principle with the fact that not only did you lose, but you lost in a game that you had no business losing, that you were in complete control over, it's going to hurt. It just is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's just a crazy game to think about. And there's a reason that some of the statistics that are coming out are what they are, right? Like, the statistic about the deficit itself that a ranked team faced at home against an unranked team in the first time in forever. Like, nothing to do with the outcome, just the deficit itself. That shows you kind of how improbable this was for South Carolina to even get to that point. And look, you credit South Carolina for getting to that point in the first half. You also, kind of credit or discredit, I don't know what the proper terminology would be, A&M, because they made some mistakes. They doinked an extra point. They dropped a touchdown pass. They dropped some other balls. But on the other hand, like, I was texting with Wes about it during the game, Kev. Like, at some point, all that stuff started to even out.
Yeah.
Because South Carolina dropped some picks, in the game. It could have been worse. And you go from that improbability to the improbability of having that lead and then blowing it, right? When you feel like, gosh, if you make one play different in several different instances in the second half, it's a different story. Maybe A&M just storms back and they come up short. The improbability of having A&M, who's getting whatever they want on offense at that point and has scored 4 straight touchdowns in the second half, saying, "You know what, we're going to dial up little reverse pass here down on the goal line," and the improbability of everything that happened on that play and getting the football back barely. The improbability of completing that ball to Nick Carver on a 4th down.
Inches from being out of bounds.
and having an opportunity to go win the game, and then it gets back to just kind of what you've seen too often this year, where you've got an opportunity late in the game, multiple chances, and it falls by the wayside, right? Like just the improbability of that entire game is almost beyond measure to me. Like all of it, the way all that played out. I don't know that we'll see many more games like that in the future, because we haven't seen many games like that in the past, and the statistics bear that out. Here's one thing that I don't know if pushback's the right word. I agree that in the first half, if South Carolina makes, even in the context of what happened, if they make a few of those other plays, yeah, they could have been up so much that even if A&M storms back, it's still almost insurmountable, right? They get another pick or whatever. You can pick out a bunch of plays. But man, what I go to is, all things considered, you still had a 27-point lead at halftime, and you got to go out in the second half and not, I mean, this is an oversimplification, just don't screw it up. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, like I'm gonna let you talk. I promise. I'm trying to get some things off my chest before I forget. First half, I don't think people want to focus on that too much, and neither do I. First half, move the football, score some points. We saw some things differently offensively that were good. Defense, yes, they were aided by A&M kind of losing their way for a half, but they played pretty well. Got a defensive score, got another sack, got some turnovers. All things considered, you did what you needed in the first half. We know that. The big problem, of course, the second half. So, let's go there. How did they go from, this is where I want to get your take. How did they go from basically don't screw this up to that's exactly what happened? Like, can you narrow it down a little bit from what you've seen?
Maybe a little. I think I want to start with the walk into halftime where Mike Elko is speaking with, and forgive me, I can't remember who was on the sideline. I can't remember who was on the sideline for ESPN, but they asked Elko about it, and he was obviously angry, but he hit it well. But all he said was, "We're going to be better."
Yeah,
and they were.
They were.
I don't know what that halftime experience was like for those wearing the all maroon jerseys for the Aggies. I'm sure it wasn't overly pleasant, right? But he said, "We're going to be better," and then they were. I mean, Marcel Reed, I think you texted me during the first half, and I was like, what's going on with Marcel Reed?
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy who was top 5 in most Heisman odds coming into the game, and he was downright terrible in the first half. Yep. He had 2 interceptions, could have easily had 4 or 5. He had the lost fumble where Dylan Stewart was shot out of a cannon and made a play. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a get off quite like that before. I mean, Reed was awful, but he came out and he was better. Texas A&M's offensive line, who was really struggling to block South Carolina's defensive front in the first half, came out and was much better in the second half. Texas A&M's defensive line, that they weren't necessarily getting bullied in the first half, but they weren't really getting a whole lot of penetration against the run or getting much pass pressure on Lenore Sellers as a passer. That started happening. They just tightened up everywhere. And there was, I mean, the drop passes. So I think they did have 1 drop pass in the second half, but they had like 5 in the first half. Like all of these areas, they tightened up. And if I had to nail it down to one play, one moment, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this or not, but it was, I believe it was A&M's first drive. Yeah, it was definitely A&M's first drive of the second half. Elko goes for it on 4th and 12 from his own territory.
Yep.
Like, that's typically speaking, like, that's not a good call. You have to get that or you're losing the ball game is what, the numbers would tell you. South Carolina has definitely one, potentially two opportunities at a tackle to get off the field right there. They miss them both. Marcel Reed makes a play. They get the first down. A couple plays later, touchdown. And I know some people don't believe in momentum. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in momentum, especially when you're talking about, 18 to, well, however old Rasul Faison is, 25,
Mm-hmm.
year-old kids who are playing ball on a Saturday. Momentum's real. And A&M grabbed some for the first time at that point.
Yep.
And then they held on to it. They got a little more, and then South Carolina had their fourth down failure later where they couldn't convert on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 1 on back-to-back plays, and A&M just rolled. I mean, they had a chance to score 5 touchdowns on 5 drives if it weren't for the strange play call near the goal line. And, I mean, I think that's all there is to it. A&M came out and was better, and South Carolina wasn't. And when they grab momentum, they never let it go because they're a team that's used to winning. They know what they're doing. They know how to get to that point, and they did it.
Yeah, I agree with Coleman here. And Coleman, this is the exact point that I was making. You can certainly argue, and I actually agree because it's literally true. If you would have made some more of those plays that you had a chance to make in the first half, and we can even go to, the first half opportunity to take a timeout, for South Carolina, where they end up settling for a field goal, which is, a fine, it's not a terrible outcome, but you had an opportunity. You had 3 timeouts. If you call a timeout earlier and save several seconds, you've got maybe 2, heck, maybe 3 plays into the end zone possibly. Instead, you settle for a field goal. And at the time, you're going, okay, got a field goal, 30-3. You feel pretty good. In hindsight, you would have loved to have that. So that is true. Now, in the two things can be true at once category, or hashtag with that being said, the second half is the biggest issue. So I fully agree with you there. I mean, Coleman says, imagine if we made 2 more plays in the second half. Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. If you have a 30-3 lead, make some plays. You win the game. Maybe you don't win it by 27, but you win the game if a few things go differently. So, yeah, I mean, those plays that you brought up, Kevin, there are others, right? Carolina, I mean, A&M, for whatever reason, had guys running wide open in the second half. Versus man coverage, they had crossers, they had guys deep, and it was a situation where you had busted coverages. I mean, there were a couple. One of the touchdowns, they motioned a guy out, so they had 2 receivers, and the corner, gets his eyes in the backfield and doesn't carry the receiver downfield, and it's an easy pitch and catch. And then you got one where it's cover 3, and there's a guy running down the field, and once again, you're responsible in the deep third for carrying a vertical receiver, and you don't, and they still have to make a pretty darn good throw and a great catch because they got to dive for it, but the guy's wide open, basically. Mm-hmm. Again, kind of football 101 things. And so I can't really put my finger on it other than to say that's what happened, and it didn't happen as much in the first half, or if it did, A&M dropped the football, on several of those on those types of plays. So the 4th and 12 was a big one. There's definitely a couple missed tackles there. That was a situation, Kev, and that's the type of thing we're talking about. If you're South Carolina, even if you get the football back there and you just fall on it 3 times, on offense, even if you go backwards a little bit and have to punt, you've wasted. I mean, I think on that drive, they ended up 3-4 minutes, something like that. When all is said and done, you probably got 5 minutes off the clock or so, maybe more. I'm terrible at math, as y'all know, but you got several minutes off the clock and you've got still a 27-point lead. It makes it really tough. And A&M was already going into urgency mode offensively. They came out of the half. We got to make some things happen. And, credit Mike Elko for kind of playing the odds, man. Like, on one hand, you say, well, that's a low percentage play. 4th and 12 is a low percentage play, but it's also low percentage there to say, hey, we're going to punt here.
Right.
With 30 minutes of football left, down 27, that's also a low percentage. So you credit him for that. Credit Marcel for making the play for A&M. Even then, they score one touchdown. You're up 20, not 27. You're up 20. Make some plays, right? And so that continued to be the theme. Kev, I'm gonna get your take on this. Big talking point for me. So you've got the 3rd and 2 situation that you referenced earlier. It's 3rd and 2. You're at the 30. The wind's whipping in College Station. We already saw Randy Bond from A&M in the first half doink, a very short field goal. If you're Shane Beamer, you're sitting there at the 30 going, okay, if we get nothing here, it's a 47-yard field goal. Would be cool. But, what would also be cool is to take a couple downs and go get this thing. And I understand that. I don't think people, y'all chime in if you disagree. I don't think people have a huge problem with the call to go for it there. I think they have a problem with obviously not getting it. And I think the play calls, right? So the play calls, we saw some on the whole. Carolina lost the game, so it's not good enough. On the whole, we saw some better stuff offensively.
Yes.
Especially in the first half. Second half, you didn't score any points, so we can't really anoint the offense in the second half at all. But man, what did you think of the play call on 3rd and 2 and then a 4th and 1 because they did get a yard? What were your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great play call for some offenses. I think if you have been this year getting solid push in the run game and you've seen running backs consistently hitting the hole and making plays, I think that can be a really good play call. You're like, hey, we can get 2 yards on 2 tries. Like, we're going to do that. However, that's not been South Carolina's reality this season.
Right.
South Carolina has struggled mightily to get push in the run game. South Carolina has had some moments with their running backs, but not consistent moments where you see guys making a play, especially in traffic. Usually when they're making a play, it's in the open field or breaking through one individual tackler, not in the scrum of a 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. So while it might be a really good play call for some offenses, I wasn't a huge fan of those things. And typically speaking, if you're going to do that, if you're going to just be like, all right, we're going to be a battering ram and go forward and do this thing, I'm of the mindset, who's your biggest, most capable runner in that situation? And though he hasn't had the year that he or anyone else was hoping for, the answer to that is 16. Lenore Sellers is 240 pounds. He is far from immobile. He's very fast. He's an effective runner. He has impossibly strong legs that we've seen him use to just squat 300-pound defensive linemen off of him. I would have personally liked to see Lenore Sellers getting that carry if that's what you're going to do. If you're going to say, hey, we're just going to pound the rock right here, we're going to earn this in the dust, in the dirt, I would have liked to have seen Lenore Sellers get that chance. We haven't seen that a ton this year in this situation, whether it was Mike Shula calling plays or Mike Furry. Most of the time we've seen the running backs get the carry, whether it's been Faison, Fuller, or otherwise. There have been a few times where they've tried to take things to the outside with mixed results, against Ole Miss, right? They gave the ball to Fuller, and it was a loss, and it was a stretch play. I mean, that has happened too. So you can't just automatically say, hey, it's going to work if they just take it to the perimeter. Well, we've seen them try, and that didn't work either. So for me, I think it's let 16 make a play. If you're going to be in shotgun, which that's a whole different part of the conversation, If you're going to be in shotgun, let your 240-pound athletic quarterback get a full head of steam and plow through there.
before I give my take on it, tell everybody about Palmetto Golf and Belts, palmettogolfing.com. Our friend Brandon Cohn also has thoughts on the game, by the way, if you want to reach out to Brandon, palmettogolfing.com. Palmetto Golf and Belts, November 17th. So Christmas season, obviously around the corner. If you're looking for a gift for that golfer in your life, custom golf towels, belts, gloves, and tees. He's got the cross design, the Palmetto tree and moon design, all in a variety of colors. Extremely well-made products. People are members on the Insiders Forum, absolutely loving them. He's always got some great sales going on too. So if you are a golfer, you got to check it out. If you aren't a golfer or you're just looking for a gift for that golfer in your life, palmettogolfing.com, Palmetto Golf and Belts. Make sure you check them out. Support local, better prices, just as well made as a lot of the other retailers, whether online or brick and mortar out there. Custom golf towels, belts, and tees, palmettogolfing.com. Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page with this, Kev. If you're calling a play there, and I'm trying to be fair with it too, because, I'm sure the staff studied, hey, in these situations, here's how A&M lines up typically, or here's what we like, right? And I'm sure they didn't call the play like, I don't know, let's just give this a run, right? Like, I'm sure there are reasons behind it. But for me, a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 is kind of in that situation, it's call it like your life depends on it type of thing. And what gives you the absolute best chance to convert? And sometimes that's a trick play. I mean, maybe on 3rd and 2, your posture is, you know what? Let's try to get him. Let's take a shot.
Yeah. Just thinking the same thing.
I'd been fine with that. I'd have been fine with it. And then you got 4th and 2. And if you want to run the ball there or pass it again, whatever, go for it. I don't think there are a few things there. Number one, I agree with you. We have not seen enough success throughout the season from South Carolina lining up and running the ball downhill to inspire great confidence that was going to work. Secondly, A&M had really started putting in some work on the interior in the A and B gaps on the line to where they're making life really difficult on you. Yep. And so you say, well, why are you suggesting Lenore Sellers run up the middle? Well, because that's a different story. When you got Lenore Sellers coming downhill at you, it's kind of, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give a painful example. You watch Clemson the other night line up against Louisville, and I know Louisville's not Texas A&M's defensive front, but they've got, I think, either a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1. They line up under center. Cade Klubnik, really good athlete. Yeah, athletic kid, big kid, can run. He just dives forward, and he's got a yard, and now the chains are moving. Yep. And you can't help but wonder, what's the aversion to doing that? And I don't have a great answer for it. It's easy for me to sit here in my ivory tower and second guess everything and all that. I get it. And that's just one play in the game. You could pick out a bunch of other ones, but it ended up being more than one play, 2 plays. 2 very consequential plays in the game. It shouldn't have come down to that. And it didn't, but they ended up being very important. And so I would have liked to see the ball in 16's hands then. I would.
Yeah. And even if you're in shotgun and you run QB power or even just a dive, whatever, like if there's a running back there, you get a little bit of your own version of the tush push a little bit. It's not quite the same. But that shouldn't be discounted. And we've seen South Carolina try something at least a little bit similar earlier in the year, where they had Maurice Brown come in and kind of push the pile, like it was designed that way. So it's not that they are unaware that they can do this thing. It's not. It's not that they've actually even shown it. But if you're going to do the whole, hey, we're not going to deviate from our normal offense, we're going to be in shotgun, at least let 16 have a chance, is my thought. And maybe, like you alluded to, maybe if you've got 2 downs, you try something a little bit different on 3rd, whether it's just straight up throwing the ball or a jet sweep. Jet sweeps actually have a lot higher short yardage success rate than I think most people realize. Mm-hmm. And even even when you don't run the sweep man, it's eye candy. One of South Carolina's best designed runs of the year came on Rasul Faison's touchdown against Vanderbilt. And they jetted, I think it was Harbor. They jetted Harbor across, and it took both linebackers' eyes that way. And Faison was able to beat both of those linebackers because they were a half step slow. And I don't know. I would have liked to see something a little bit different.
Yep. I'm totally with you. A couple other leftover things, end of game situation. Again, kind of improbable to get there because of the incredible Nick Harbor 4th down catch, but you then have a screenplay to Jawarn Howell that gets 9 yards. And so my other little, mini rant will be, Howell started the game. They had at least a package for him. Played more than he's played this season. Had 39 yards on a catch for 9 yards, and then 30 rushing yards on 4 touches.
Yep.
And so that's kind of another little micro issue. Again, easy to pick apart after, especially in the second half when South Carolina's rushing for 0.9 yards a carry in the second half. Should Jawarn Howell have gotten the ball more? I think so. Easy to say now, but probably. And 0 points in the second half. So that's another thing. Lenore Sellers late in the game. I mean, I don't know if probably none of us have an answer, Kev, but 2nd and 1 after that aforementioned screenplay.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that says just get 20 yards and you win the game. You still got to make a field goal, right? Like, not that easy, but you got a chance. As improbable as it is, you got a chance. You go sack on a play where you had somebody open, sack, and then run out of bounds. And not the first time that we've seen, at least similar things like in later game or key situations. What's your take on it?
I am, in most situations, a fan of trying to make something happen on 2nd and 1 because, hey, you got 3rd and 1 and potentially 4th and 1 to try to earn that first down. However, if you've got a little bit of time at the end of the game, I think I would just say, hey, get the first down, restart this here, series with a first down. Because I think, I mean, I know you didn't get 1 yard earlier in the game, but I think you got to feel pretty good about in that situation where they got to be a little bit more spread out, getting a yard. But in terms of what actually happened, it's a combination of several things, right? The offensive line, which didn't have a terrible game. I know people still pile on the offensive line. They weren't terrible, guys. It was much better than what we saw at earlier points in the season. But on several of those plays, the sacks, there was obviously some pressure. I think Sellers has, especially this season, had I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, a propensity to hold on to the ball too long at times. But also something that I think a lot of people don't notice is that if guys aren't open, and they don't think about this, if guys are not open, it's not a good play to just throw the ball anyway. That doesn't excuse taking a sack, right? But especially on the last play, the 4th down play, like the reason Sellers took off was not because he thought, hey, the best possible outcome of this play is that I just run on 4th long. It was, hey, there's nobody open. I've got no choice here but to run. Now, maybe don't get quite as close to the sideline, so maybe you got a little bit better of a chance, but there was nobody open on that play, and I think the broadcast team kind of broke that down on ESPN, and it's just kind of a microcosm of the season, right? You see this opportunity where you're like, all right, you got a chance to win. They gave you this chance, and you've got 3 different 3 different plays back to back where you're like, man, if one position group did something a little bit different, maybe the outcome is better. If you get a little bit better protection, if Sellers is able to, because I think on one of them, Jaden Sellers actually kind of popped open a little bit like late in the play, but it was too late for Sellers. If maybe he's got a half second longer, it looks different. But that's kind of what's been happening all year. They're whether it's Lenore Sellers at quarterback or the offensive line or the wide receivers, who I think have been better than what some people think, but you've had guys with opportunities that just haven't taken advantage of them. And I think that's what happened late.
Yeah, when you have this many struggles, it's not just one thing. And look, I mean, that is why South Carolina is in the position of looking for a new offensive coordinator, right? And some people, well, it should have never, that hire should have never been made. Again, water under the bridge. Now, we can't go back and change that. The change was made after many games this season. If you think it should have been done earlier, never at all. Like, I get that. Like, I get it. But there is going to be a new OC in Columbia, and that's really why, right? And I think the Sellers issue with him, I mean, that throw he made for the touchdown to Dre Jacobs, I mean, it's like he walked up and handed it to him.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, that is an insane. Some people, I always see people, anybody can make that throw. It's just asinine kind of stuff. Like, that is an insane throw. I mean, just you can't throw it any better. And then you see some of the other stuff, like in intermediate passes where there's too much zip on the ball or it's behind a guy, the decision make, like not seeing guys late. It's just been so uneven. And I don't think that's lost on anybody inside the program of like everybody. This was the year where it's expected, man, like look at what Lenoris did in the back half of last year. Imagine what he's going to be like with another offseason and taking that next step. And he hasn't taken, he's still made some mind-boggling throws and even some mind-boggling runs this year, but the consistency hasn't been there. It's actually gone. Again, Kev, I don't like the word regressed. I feel like it's overused, but there has been, I mean, a regression there, and it's not an issue that I don't think will be fixed fully until next season, hopefully. But it's been part of it. But again, when this many things, go wrong with an offense, it's a combination of a lot of different things, which is why, we are where we are now. So if it's okay with you, Kev, let's kind of go a little bit bigger picture here. And Coleman, I'm featuring our guy Coleman today. He's had a lot of comments. So your take on the sentiment around the building with Donati, do we just accept this is what SC is going to be moving forward? So I've got some thoughts on this. I'll get yours too, Kev. Nuance is not something done well in college sport, in sports fandom, or really in anything anymore. I think where things are right now, and this isn't like just opinion, this is like me trying to do my job and find out what is actually going on. What's the temperature? What's the pulse? Shane Beamer came into this year safe. You don't want to say no matter what. You don't want to say, you never say never. And even in the context of the season, you never say never. What if South Carolina loses to Coastal and Clemson the next 2 weeks? I don't know. I'll let you know. We'll have to make some. Well, I was sure you will be making some calls, and we'll be fielding calls and text messages. Right now, I think the odds very much favor he's coming back next year, and is going to get a chance to run it back, and is going to get a chance to fix it. Less than a year ago, Shane Beamer had won 9 games, almost made the playoff. It's not like he's won 5 games, 4 games, 3 games, right? And it's not my decision to make. I'm trying to pass along how South Carolina's administration views it and some facts about this thing. The point is to try to answer your question here, Coleman. Bringing Shane Beamer back in 2026 does not signal we're okay with going 1-7 in conference and winning 3 games or 4 or 5, however many they end up winning this year. Like, I think that's oversimple, and I'm not even saying that's what you're saying, Coleman, but some people say that, oh, we're bringing back this coach that just had a bad year. That means we're fine with it. No. Doesn't mean you're fine with it. There was a line between trying to figure out, okay, this went bad. So the options are to start over or to give the guy a chance to fix it. And we also have, people get very mad when I point this out, but like it is just a fact. Beamer had a bad season in 2023. People were very happy, or very unhappy, bad vibes. He did turn it around, not to the playoff extent, but like it was pretty good. 2024, people generally pretty good with that year. He did turn it around. The question is, can he turn it around again? And I do think he's going to get that chance. But again, like just to try to answer that question, it doesn't mean there's an acceptance that, well, I don't know, man, we're good just rolling the ball out there, winning 3 or 4 games a year. Like that's not what you're saying by bringing a coach back. What you're saying is, hey, you've earned the opportunity to try to go fix it. And if that is indeed the case, no doubt 2026 is going to be a hugely critical year.
Yeah, and specifically on the Donati aspect of the question, there have been some people, and I don't think this is malicious or anything like that, but there have been some people who they're just like, well, he's got a business background, so he's more concerned about the money than winning. That's not what's going on here. And if you don't know, I'm about to tell you, Jeremiah Donati was a college basketball player. He is extremely competitive. He is not happy about losing. Like all of this is reality. Like it's not just, hey, there's this suit with a business background who's the AD now. You've got a guy who's got a good business background, but also has a background playing sports as well. Like this guy is competitive as anyone else. He wants to win too. This isn't strictly business and money. If he decides to bring Shane Beamer back for 2026, it's because he wants to give him an opportunity and thinks that he can take advantage of an opportunity to make things right. If things don't get right, then the conversation changes, right? But Jeremiah Donati is not just some clueless business guy. I've seen that narrative out there. It's not the case.
Well, let me give another piece of evidence to that. So Jeremiah Donati, before he came to South Carolina, was the athletics director, as we know, at TCU. He was a former agent. He was a deputy AD at TCU, then got into the big chair at TCU. Jeremiah Donati fired Gary Patterson.
A legend.
Now, most of you probably know who Gary Patterson is. If you don't, he basically, I mean, they had some other pockets at TCU, right? But, I mean, the guy did things, right? I mean, he had he had an undefeated season, won the Rose Bowl 13-0, number 2 national ranking in 2010. 2014, he was 12-1, 2015, 11-2, 2017. I think that was Donati's maybe first year as full-time AD. 11-3, won the Alamo Bowl, top 10 finish. 4 years later, he's dismissing him. Like you said, Kev, a legend in Fort Worth. You think that was an easy decision? I mean, absolutely. It was the equivalent of firing Steve Spurrier at South Carolina if they would have done that, I mean, it's very similar type of thing. Where you say, we've got this legend, we got this guy who's done great things, but it's time. And in Gary Patterson's last few seasons, 2018, 7-6, 2019, 5-7, 2020, COVID shortened year, 6-4. And then in 2021, he was 3-5 and didn't get to finish the year. So 2 losing seasons in that 4-year span. It's not like they went 0-12, 2 losing seasons and he was out the door. Right. So you can't say Jeremiah Donati is like he has a track record, and by the way, he made that call, hired Sonny Dykes, and the next year they're in the college football playoff. Now, some of you might say, oh, that sounds good, Chris. Why don't we just do that here? We'll hire somebody. We'll be in the playoff next year. Like it's not the same situation. Those situations are different. I give that example to point out that like again, if Donati brings back Beamer, which as of now, Monday, November 17th, 2:50 p.m. Eastern, that is my expectation. That doesn't mean he's saying, hey, everybody, everything's great here. We're good. It's him saying Beamer's built up some cachet to try to get this thing corrected. Can he go get it? And again, he will go into can't hide from it. It'll be a very critical year in 2026.
Yeah. And there's a few comments that I've seen about hiring like assistant coaches. And you touched on it earlier, Chris. That's probably going to be the biggest offseason storyline around here, is assuming that Beamer does come back. He's definitely got to hire an OC.
Yep.
And he and the OC have to decide on the offensive line or tight end coach vacancy and decide if the rest of the offensive staff is going to remain in place. And then we can't pretend like there aren't several guys on the defensive staff who have been of interest for other jobs, but even like moving up from, like Clayton White, there are programs that would be interested in him as a head coach. Guys like Sterling Lucas and Torian Gray, there will be programs that are interested in them as potentially a DC, promotions in the coaching world, so to speak. So you guys who are talking about hiring, like that's going to be a massive part of this offseason. And if South Carolina is going to, bounce back, so to speak, in 2026 in such a way that allows Shane Beamer to be the long-term coach here, he's going to have to nail those hires. Absolutely.
Yep. What other adjustments, if any, does he look at that need to be made? After the 23 season, Beamer made some adjustments to the staff. He actually did not make as many as like people wanted him to, whether that's fans or even people like, might have been some people in the administration that were like, oh, don't you want to shake things up a little bit more? And, again, they didn't go win the SEC or the national championship, which is ultimately should be the goal, I think, of any SEC program. But they did have a pretty darn good year. And heck, I mean, maybe you could argue, well, Chris, if he would have shaken some things up even more, they would have done even better. Okay. I mean, valid argument, maybe. But the point I'm trying to make is this year he's facing two definite vacancies, but I think he's also facing a situation where you got to take a big time look under the hood at the health of the program and just how is everything running. If we're going to talk about offense, defense, special teams, how are offense, defense, and special teams running? How's your recruiting operation? I've written about this before, but NIL is a huge component of this, Kev. I think there's more work to be done there. And that whoever the coach is, if you're not situated well there, you're going to struggle, bottom line. And some things have changed in the recent months from an NIL standpoint that you got to be out in front of that. So, all right, y'all, I think we've gotten some things out here, gotten some things off our chest. I feel like I taught a lot, so I'm sorry, Kev. Made you come on here and just listen to me. Appreciate your input. Appreciate everybody here on the chat. Hope everybody's having a great week. I know it was tough on Saturday. Hope you've kind of gotten past that. There's a lot of things to be thankful for, a lot of blessings out there, so try not to worry too much. I know everybody wants to win, and there's a lot of frustration in terms of football. I totally get that, but hope everybody can turn their week around, and we'll be here to follow it. Rest of the regular season slate, starting with Coastal Carolina on Saturday, then the Palmetto Bowl against Clemson. Going to be a very interesting offseason, if nothing else. Come check us out on GamecockCentral.com. Make sure you're a member there. We'd love to have you. You can chat with us every day on there. Kev, I appreciate you, man.
No, thanks for having me on. Glad to pinch hit for Wes today.
Yeah, you did a great job. I give you an A+. Thanks for everybody being on the chat. For Kev, I'm Chris. Y'all have a great one. Talk to you soon.